Are you ready to perform at your highest potential? Thank you for joining this GP Strategies webinar, where we'll explore best practices and innovative insights to help you and your organization improve performance.
So again, I want to thank you for joining our session today, and I'm excited to introduce you to our presenter today. So Julian Lee is a certified change management practitioner with over 30 years of experience successfully delivering change solutions to a broad spectrum of clients across multiple industries. We have a really great session planned for today. So with that, I want to hand it off to Julian and have a great presentation.
Thank you, Kim, and welcome all for joining the webinar this morning, this afternoon, or whatever time it might be where you are. It's a pleasure to share this information with you, and I'm looking forward to a healthy discussion and some interaction with the group as we talk through some of the nuances of project team effectiveness and how we can make things better. So let's get started. All right, here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk about the stage, setting the stage for this whole discussion. And that's what I like for it to be, a discussion where we do interact. We're going to talk about what exactly is project team effectiveness, what does ineffectiveness look like, and then go into some of the concepts and thinking that will indicate whether we're being effective in our thinking and being effective in our teams. Talk about some of the nuances of this term called parallel thinking, which I'll go into a little bit deeper. And we're going to introduce the 6 thinking hats and talk about those in details. And then we're going to have some takeaways for you at the end of the session. So let's set the stage. And what I want to do here is understand some of the scenarios that you may have been experiencing. What kinds of training have you experienced as a project team? Meaning, are there particular trainings on how to function as a project team before the project team even forms that you've experienced where it allows you to function better as a team? Now, I understand for technology implementation, there's project team training in a lot of cases where you get some kind of functional training. I'm talking about how to function as a team to where you're better understanding of the dynamics of a team to become better at operating as one unit and being very cohesive. So Kim, I understand you can't see the numbers, but they're coming in quite extensively. The answers I'm showing, we have, of course, which would be great. And I'm having never coming in at 91%, which means a lot of individuals come together as project teams who've never worked together before, individuals from different functional areas of the organization, from the business operational aspect, they're coming in on the project team. Then you have your systems integrators and other outsiders maybe coming into this project team where we all have to work together. And it's important for us to understand the dynamics of that team. And in order for this team to do what they are charged to do, you're going to be asked to make decisions. You're going to be asked to look at requirements. You're going to look at scope. You're going to look at the features and functionality that need to be deployed as a part of this project. And if you don't have a mechanism to fall back on to where you can effectively look at those things in a manner that's productive, then you have a scenario where you may not be as effective as you should be as a team. The majority of the people that join these project teams come in with full-time responsibilities, and then now you're asked to be on this team. The other thing worth noting is that a lot of times people are asked to be on these teams or they are voluntold to be on these teams, which means people may come with a bias about the change that they may be experiencing. You're asking people to look at the way that they currently do work and come up with solutions and decisions about how their future is going to be. So people may tend to step back and not be as engaged as they could be. So it's important that we learn to think and behave as a team, as a unit when these teams come together. So at the beginning stages of a project, we like to see project team effectiveness be a part of the day-to-day activities and the day-to-day training and the preparation for a project team. So Kim, let's close the poll, if you will. And I don't know if people can we share the results or do I have to read them out?
No, I'm sharing them right now. So people should be able to see them.
Okay, that's pretty pretty significant. I'm sure 93% says this never happens, right? Which is something that we need to address as we implement these new technologies. Digital transformation is here to stay. Projects are here to stay. We're implementing multi-million-dollar solutions for organizations, and we have to learn and have to make changes in terms of how we prepare our project teams to be successful. Because not only can people resist change, the project teams can resist change and inhibit the ability to get the most out of the implementation and reach that project team success. Because not only are the project team members delivering and building the solution, the change is impacting them as well. So they will have a position that we have to address. So in order to make that happen, we can implement some project team effectiveness techniques and the 6 thinking hats techniques in order to ensure that we have a team exactly where they need to be in order to deliver a solution that's beneficial to the entire organization. Great poll. Thank you for your feedback. We'll get rid of this off the screen. All righty. And unfortunately, okay, here we go. I'm sorry. All right, so what is project team effectiveness? Let's talk about that. What does that look like? Project team effectiveness refers to a group of individuals coming together to work as a unit to achieve the project success, those goals that we set out, to deliver a successful business outcome, and to perform as a collective unit. Effective teams do the following things. They leverage expertise, they promote collaboration, enhance productivity of the group, and also they improve decision-making. I've seen project teams where decision-making was difficult at best, and it caused project delays, and it caused some other scenarios, trust and issues that I'm going to discuss on the next slide. So decision-making is vitally important as we understand the effectiveness of our project teams. And then it also fosters accountability. Accountability is a big word when it comes to project work, and someone has to be accountable to make decisions, and others have to be held accountable in order to get the bottom line results of your project. So what does an ineffective team look like? I can't see your hands, but if you can relate to any of these, I won't go through all these, but when you're on an ineffective team, or you've been a part of a project team that just didn't gel quite like it should, some of these things probably transpired. The performance of the team. How about lack of communication? That's typically one we can fall back on that causes issues with our IT implementations. Poor decision-making. How about conflict? We're going to talk a little bit about conflict and tension. And then there's always at the end of the project, do we actually get what we intended to get based on how our project team functioned, right? And anytime there's a lack of trust, when there's business leaders on a project team, there's functional leaders on a project team, I've seen a lack of trust come into play where the teams did not get exactly on the same level. And that causes the team to be ineffective as well. Kim, I saw a hand go up. Was there a comment or?
Sorry. I think that they're just agreeing with you. You're
Okay,
not.
great.
But I
Well,
also posted in the chat, if anybody sees something here that you don't see here, that to let us know. That there's
absolutely.
something here that you've seen that's not listed. So let us know.
Awesome. Thank you. So here's some research. It's always important to have some data and facts, and we're going to talk about data and facts here shortly as well. But if you have a mature project management process, which includes effective teams, 77% of the time they meet their project goals, and they stay within budget 67% of the time, and they deliver on time 63% of the time. Those are some high numbers in terms of project success, project delivery, implementations being on time. So it's crucial to understand that project teams, which we come together for a particular reason to deliver the solution, have to be effective. And in order for a project team to be effective, we need some sort of capability to understand how we gel and how we work together, how we should work together. And I'm going to share more about that process when we talk about the hats as well. So let's talk about what I like to call traditional thinking and project team effectiveness. All right. Have we ever experienced this on a project team? Right, we're implementing our new technology. We've been brought together. We are taking requirements. We are gathering requirements. We're talking about the functionality that needs to be deployed, or what we need to bring into the discussion. And we get into this "I'm right and you're wrong" mentality, conflict, adversarial thinking is the way that I like to coin it. So on a project team, this is highly ineffective. I'm right and you're wrong causes conflict. Egos come into play. We're having people come together and trying to work together, and my solution or my idea could be totally opposite of what you're trying to implement or trying to make a part of the implementation. So let's talk real quick. What are some of the outcomes when project team members demonstrate this type of traditional thinking behavior? So please chime in at this point. We'll give you a couple of minutes, and Kim will read some of those out. What are some of the outcomes when you have this conflict, when you have the "I'm right and you're wrong" mentality on your project teams? What are some of the outcomes?
Well, we have something stress. So yeah, keep them coming.
Yes,
Don't be
please do.
shy. I'm not going to call you out. Delayed or derailed outcome achievements. Everything just takes longer. Totally. Yes, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so disengagement. Ooh. Yeah, less production, right? You're not getting
Yeah,
stuff done.
absolutely. We're having to manage both sides of the equation here when you have this adversarial thinking, right? And that's important to know, because as a team, if we have these opposing sides, it's going to make it hard for us to move forward and get the expected outcome of our project, and also to build that trust that's lacking when these types of scenarios exist. So let's move forward, if we will. Thank you for participating, providing that insight. Let's talk about what we're calling parallel thinking and project team effectiveness. Let's explain parallel thinking first. Now, we saw the adversarial thinking, right? This engagement. Parallel thinking is where we have a group of participants to focus on the direction of thinking, one hat at a time or simultaneously. So look at A and B, look at parallel thinking, look at A and B versus adversarial thinking. The parallel thinking allows us to explore ideas in parallel without giving up your side of I'll just say, of the argument. You can put your thoughts aside and say, okay, now let's both A and B look at why this will work, as opposed to A and B looking at it, I'm wrong and you're right, or I'm right and you're wrong, or this will work and this won't work. If A and B both look at why it will work, okay, and then if A and B both look at why it doesn't work, you're not giving up your position. You're just allowing yourself to think differently. It's more collaborative. It allows you to see things from different perspectives that you may not see, because you have this adversarial thought process that typically goes into our traditional way of thinking. So it's important. Parallel thinking is both sides looking at the situation in parallel to come up with a better solution. One story I like to just highlight here: what if our court systems was like this? All right, the defense and the prosecution both looked at why the person was guilty, and then they both looked at why the person was innocent. That would be a very unique scenario, right? May not ever happen, but that's what parallel thinking is. It's meant to allow people to look at things from different perspectives and move away from their thought process that may be inhibiting them from functioning as a team, or inhibiting them from seeing things from another point of view. All righty. So here's that different perspective, right? A and B now are looking at things in parallel. So let's talk again. What are some of the benefits when project team members demonstrate this type of thinking behavior? What are some of the positive things that might happen when people are working in parallel and allowing themselves to see things differently, as opposed to the adversarial type thinking? let's take a few minutes and please chime in.
Well, even while you were talking about parallel thinking, we had a couple of comments come in that it means win-win.
I like that.
I know, Ellen, good one. Working in harmony, getting outcomes, all this opposite stuff that we were talking about, improve each other's thoughts, different ideas and ways to meet the end goals. Really good comments coming through. Everyone has an input. I like everybody's on the same track.
Well, that's fantastic because you can see the difference, the productivity of this type of thinking versus the adversarial type thinking. And I'll raise my hand for I've seen it live in person on a project team where we had the adversarial thinking. And I'll tell a quick story. The client, the business owner, was asking for some features and functionality, and the systems integrator was saying, no, we can't build that, or it would take a lot more to make that happen. And that was a huge confrontation. And the systems integrator looked at the business owner and said, if you want it, you build it. And I was in that meeting and I just did a timeout because I'm familiar with this process, and I've trained folks on this process, and I took them out of that discussion and had them get to a different point where they could see different perspectives. And that happened live and in person. So it happens quite often, that conflict, that adversarial type thinking when it comes to project teams and implementing these huge technology implementations. So let's talk about the 6 thinking hats. Here they are. Each hat represents a different mode of thinking. The white hat looks at information and facts. The red hat, feelings and gut intuition. The green hat, creativity, ideas, new ways of thinking. The yellow hat looks at feasibility and benefits. The black hat looks at risk, difficulties, and weaknesses. And the blue hat is the managing of the whole thinking process, the blue hat. And I'm going to talk to each one of these in detail. I just want to highlight here that a gentleman by the name of Edward de Bono created this thinking concept. And I've been certified in this concept since, I'm going to date myself, 1996. So it's been around for a while, but it's very, very effective. But it's so simple to get to think through, but it's so powerful in its delivery and what the
Julian,
process is all about. Yes.
I just had a question come through. It wants to know where the purple hat is.
There is no purple hat.
Well, I like a purple hat.
Ironically, I get that question quite often. Where's I can't even say the word. I'll say shark, whatever that color is. Purple hat. Yeah, thank you. But there's only 6 hats, and I'll tell you why. There's only 6, and Mr. de Bono created these hats and this whole thinking concept many years ago. So we're going to let him have his 6 hats. And I know how effective it is because it's just the right number and it captures the majority of the thinking that we experience anyway. So there's only 6, and each hat represents a different mode of thinking. You saw the white hat, information, red hat, feelings, green hat, creativity, black hat, risk, concerns, yellow hat, benefits, blue hat, the control of the whole thinking process and managing that element of it. It's a powerful thinking tool. Individuals learn to switch mode of thinking at will, right? So we're in a session, we're having a team discussion, we're looking at the requirements, we are determining what features and functionality we need to deploy, and we need to step back and everybody put on each hat to thoroughly assess whether we're going to move forward with a particular decision or solve a particular problem, or if we need to come up with some innovative ideas to make the project a success. So that's how this process works, and it's a very powerful tool that's used for that particular scenario. Here's a key point: there are no categories. Now, if I say, well, I'll just use Kim since she's right here with me. Kim is always a black hat wearer, right? Which is okay to a certain degree, but you don't want to categorize Kim as a black hat wearer because guess what? The minute I say that Kim's a black hat wearer, guess what Kim's gonna be? Kim's gonna be a black hat wearer. So it's important that each individual learns to switch modes of thinking at will and not wear a particular hat. So we don't categorize people or label them as hat wearers. As it's stated here, the brilliance of this process, that individuals learn to use each hat as needed. That's important. And then why hats? I mean, I grew up in rural Alabama. I know you can't tell from my accent, but my parents used to say, use your head for more than just a hat rack, right? Or put on your thinking cap. So hats have always had a reference to thinking, and that's why the hat concept is so big in the way that Mr. DeBono created it and uses it in this process. So let's go into the hats in detail. This is the fun part. All righty. The blue hat, managing the thinking process. It is the control hat. It organizes the thinking. It sets the focus. The focus is what you're going to discuss in the meeting. The focus could be looking at a piece of functionality that the systems integrator wants to implement versus the business saying, well, I'm not so sure we can take that on, but let's look at it at any rate. So that focus is the discussion that's going on in the meeting during the thinking process. And it sets the agenda. One key point here, think about how powerful this could be. Before you get to a meeting, you've all gone through the 6 thinking hats, and before you get to a meeting, an agenda comes out with each one of the hats of what's going to be discussed in the meeting, and each hat is represented. So you know exactly what type thinking to bring to that discussion. How productive would that be when everybody knows ahead of time the type of interaction that we're having and the type of thinking that's going to be a part of that meeting and the process that's going to be set forth. The other thing that the blue hat does is summarizes and it concludes. So it takes the notes and put everything together, and this is where we landed, and it ensures the rules are followed. So there's a blue hat facilitator in every engagement where we're having requirements gathering, whether we're doing process documentation, we're discussing some of the changes that are occurring. It's important to have that blue hat facilitator be a part of the process.
Julian, I have a question.
Sure.
Somebody wants to know, can more than one person wear the blue hat?
Interesting. The blue hat, as I stated, is the facilitator's hat. Yes, a person can in a meeting could say, well, under the blue hat, I like to propose that we table this idea and then we move forward. Or we come back and get more information. So that's one avenue for where the blue hat can be shared, but the blue hat always falls back to the facilitator. It's important to know that also the facilitator could be and a different facilitator could be for each meeting. So there are blue hat wearers in different meetings that you're in. It could be a functional lead. It could be the project management individual. It could be somebody you bring in as a outside facilitator. But the blue hat is the one that maintains the control and maintains the focus and sets the agenda for the discussion and always ensures that the rules are observed. And that rule I was referring to, Kim, I'm just going to use that as an example. We're in a meeting and we're looking at requirements, and Kim will say something that may fall under another hat, and I'll say, well, Kim, we're doing red hat thinking right now, which talks about the emotions that's a part of the process. So I've redirected Kim's thinking to where she's doing the type of thinking that's needed to come to a decision, as opposed to on a tangent that something might not work, where we actually have the opportunity to shift her modes of thinking. That's why the facilitator hat and having people observe the rules are very, very important.
I just want to put it out there. I've never had a tangent. Just saying.
Which hat is that? That's that purple hat.
Exactly.
Okay, the black hat looks at risks, difficulties, and weaknesses of an idea. Again, functionality could be offered up by a systems integrator, or someone on the business may say, hey, I need this. And then we have to understand what are some of the challenges and risks that are involved with implementing some of the features and functionality or ideas that come to the discussion. So it explores why something doesn't work. And the black hat is very important because it keeps you legal. That's just a good way of looking at it. Before we make a decision, it'd be nice to say, okay, what could go wrong with this particular decision? So black hat thinking has its place. Now, where the black hat can get tricky if it's overused. If someone comes in with all the black hat reasons why something will not work, then there may be an instance where that person is stuck. And it's easy to get stuck in a certain mode of thinking. We're all creatures of habit, and we're all experiencing things during these projects where our world's going to be disrupted, and we're going to do things differently. So some element of, hey, I just don't know if this is going to work. And under the black hat, you just constantly, this won't work, but you have to explain why. That's what's critical about this. But the key to the black hat also, it's a very useful hat. It's probably the most useful hat in the process. And that's my opinion. One might have a different opinion, but it is a powerful assessment tool when you're using the yellow hat, right? The yellow hat looks at benefits and feasibility, and that's what we're going to talk about next. But it also allows you to step back and look at why something will not work versus just seeing the benefits of it. The yellow hat, feasibility, benefits, and value. Now, the yellow hat requires a deliberate effort in my mind. If you think about it, it's easy to say something won't work because if it does work, it's going to disrupt the way that you do work. It's going to disrupt your day-to-day life at work. So things will be changing. So it's easy to step back and just wear the black hat. So the yellow hat is less natural than the black hat. But the yellow hat, when you look at feasibility and benefits, you want to always give a reason for why it's beneficial. So that substantiates the thought process. Again, it's a powerful assessment tool when you're using black hat thinking. When someone says, okay, this is why it will not work, then we have the feasibility of why it will work. So now under those hats, we're asking people to shift mode. So if a person is wearing the black hat and only looking at why things may not be working well, okay, great black hat thoughts. Now let's shift to the yellow hat. So what have I done? The confrontation, that adversarial thinking goes away. I have moved a person's thinking from one mode to another, shifting from black hat to yellow hat or yellow hat to black hat. Because there's people that only see the benefits in things as well. Everything is going to work. So they don't get a chance to step back and look at, hey, what might go wrong with this particular scenario? So it's important to wear all the hats, focus the thinking where it needs to be, facilitate the thinking process, and have people observe the rules, which is whichever hat we're using at the time. That's the type of thinking that I'm allowing at that point in time. Excuse me, as the facilitator. The white hat, information, facts, data. What information do we have? What information do we need? How are we going to get this information? The importance of this hat is that if we were about to make a decision about a piece of functionality that we wanted to deploy, let's just say we're deploying tablets out into a field scenario where employees are going to have to use tablets. What is some of the information we would want to know prior to doing that? I mean, what's the connectivity like in these rural areas? Say if they're out doing work in areas where connectivity is not good, or what is the savviness of the individuals that's able to use tablets? Those are the types of white hat questions you would want to ask before you implemented a solution. So the white hat is very important as well. Understanding what information we have, using that information to make decisions or inform decisions about what's missing, what information that's available for us, and how do we use that information when we're making decisions, when we're solving problems, and we're trying to be innovative. The information piece is vitally important. So the white hat plays a critical role in the thinking process as well. Oh, the red hat. Now, some organizations or I've seen organizations that may not encourage red hat thinking. Now, I think red hat thinking is vitally important. Now, you could choose whichever one of these individuals, these emojis over here that you typically resonate with or to, but the red hat thinking is important because feelings and intuition is vital to the thinking process. Now, In the 6 thinking hats, using the red hat should be a very short process, expressed in 1 or 2 words. I like it, I dislike it. And the importance of that is that you don't want emotions to just bog down a session where you're trying to determine what's in scope for a particular project, or you're trying to determine some of the business requirements. And people have emotional attachments to how they do work today. So they'll have the opportunity to wear that red hat, and will wear it all day long if you allow it. But under the red hat, we allow them to have full permission to express your feelings. I don't like it. Thank you very much. And now we're going to move on and do some more productive thinking. If you don't allow this type of thinking to occur, people will tend to bog down because it was like, well, nobody asked me how I felt about this. And sometimes feelings are not warranted or not asked as a part of the whole thinking process. But it's vitally important for the thinking to occur, and for Red Hat to be a part of that thinking, where you get the emotions out of the way so you can have a more productive discussion about the change, or about the technology implementation, or about some of the decisions that have to be made. We have the green hat. The green hat deals with creativity and innovation. This is my most favorite hat, if I'm allowed to do that, to choose one, because you throw logic out of the window. Now, for some, well, I'm not going to pick on engineers, but for people out there that logic is the rationale for your thinking and for your decisions, it may be hard to be a green hat wearer in a thinking process. Not categorizing you as a green hat wearer, but during the green hat thinking, you are wearing the hat. Creativity and innovation encourage a search for new ideas. It allows you to explore new ideas without having to explain why. And the reason you can do that, you throw logic out of the window when you can bring these new ideas to the table and then do a discovery whether they are beneficial or whether they are harmful using the other hats. But when you're using the green hat, it is vitally important to allow creativity to flow. You don't want to shut down creativity. You want to collect as many ideas as possible, and then rationale whether they are usable, or whether you can move forward with them or not. The other thing that the green hat does, and this is a key point. Let's say we've had a discussion, and there's been several black hat concerns why something shouldn't be implemented, or pieces of functionality should not be introduced as a part of the project. And the person or a group of people that did the black hat thinking was constantly saying, well, this is why it won't work. Well, under the green hat, we come up with ways to make it work. So it offsets the dominance of the black hat, which allows your team to move from, okay, this won't work. Now let's put on our green hat and come up with solutions. And you almost force people to solve their own problems, which I think is a pretty cool scenario when you're involving individuals in the whole thinking process and the decision-making process, that they are allowed to have their black hat thoughts, and then they are challenged, in some cases challenged, to do green hat thinking, to come up with solutions to the very problems that they brought to the table. I think that's a very powerful use of the green hat, and it's important that we allow that green hat thinking to occur. So that's the nature of the green hat. All the hats are powerful in their own right. Each hat does represent a different mode of thinking. The more we are capable to shift, to move away from our adversarial thinking, move away from our current way of thinking, to allow ourselves to see things from different perspectives, the better off we're going to be as a project team, the better opportunity we're going to have to deliver the solution as easily and smoothly as possible using this concept. How important or how powerful would it be for every team, before the project team is even formed, or when we identify those folks, they go through this type of thinking, or this type of engagement, where they learn to use these particular hats so they can be better at their whole problem solving, decision making, and being innovative.
Julian, I did have a question that came through. Somebody asks, can the red hat be used to close the discussion to gather reaction?
Yes. There's a bullet right there that says after decision to check buy-in and commitment, you can use the red hat for that particular scenario. All right, we've gone through, we've decided that we're going to move forward with this functionality. How are we feeling?
Mhm.
So you can get that quick, down and dirty. I feel good. I like it. Don't like it. But as a collective, we've gone through and we've used the red hat as a gauge to determine buy-in and commitment. So when we see that there may not be the right level of commitment, say we do the red hat as this gauge, then we've already gone through the other hats to determine the feasibility and why it will work and come up with a green hat solution that we want to move forward with. Now we're asking for the red hat response. When we find out there's a level of commitment not where it needs to be, then that's why we focus our efforts from a change perspective to help that person understand, that group of people understand exactly, help us understand where that level of commitment lies and what it's going to take to get them totally committed to the project. If this was a let's say a highly influential person on a team and they didn't have the level of commitment, under the red hat, we would be able to discern where that person's thought process is and then address that as we carry on through the project lifecycle. From an organizational change management perspective, it allows us to see where our challenges might be. Great question. Any other questions? I'm just going on. Is there anything else popping up, Kim?
Uh, not right now. I think
Okay.
I'm catching them. I'm like catching them and throwing them out there to you.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. So here's some of the key takeaways.
Mhm.
This is what I'd like. This is homework as a group, individually. Which hats do you use? Which two hats do you feel most comfortable in using? And then which two hats dominate the thinking of your project team? Everyone wears a hat. These hats represent thinking. So somebody is on your project team wearing a hat, whether you want to reference that as a hat or not, but they're doing a type of thinking that that's represented here. And the question is, how does this type of thinking impact your project team's effectiveness? Right. So this is a takeaway. This is a homework for you. And if you'd like to know more about how your current way of thinking impacts your project teams, or if you'd like to know more about how your current way of thinking, your whatever you're comfortable in, is affecting the project team effectiveness, I am at your disposal. Reach out. We can have a conversation. It's just me sharing my knowledge and information about how this process works, because as I stated, every scenario, the hats are being used in some capacity. That thinking is being used in some capacity, like I stated, whether you want to use the hat terminology or not. Now, this is what's going to happen. Now that you've experienced this thinking concept, you're going to go back to your meetings and you're going to find opportunities where people are using a hat and without even knowing that they're using it. So to that point, people use hats, they think in a certain manner, and they bring that to the equation when decisions have to be made about these projects and these implementations and all the things that comes with that. So be aware of that when you go back to in some of your meetings and look and see or listen and see who's using which hat and what scenario, and how something like this could make that whole discussion more robust and more productive.
I have a feeling many people are going to be calling people by their hat colors in meetings. Don't be a red hat. Put your green hat on.
Now that's allowed, but we don't want to. I say it's allowed. I wouldn't do it, and if people don't understand the terminology, that's part of the concern. Is that people? What are you talking about? Green
Just
hat? What are
enough
you talking
knowledge to make it to cause some ruckus.
about?
Just running with scissors with your green hat.
Oh, so here's your homework. right? And I have no way of checking it. So you check yourselves, your answers, and if you care to share them with me, I'm accessible. I'm on LinkedIn. You have my direct contact information. If there's any piece of this process you want to know more about, I'm at your disposal.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up, Julian. We got 2 more minutes and I got 2 more questions.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about practical application for this process. It's important to conduct regular training sessions to familiarize each team member with the 6 Thinking Hats technique. That's vitally important. The training is a critical piece. So it sets the foundation, and it also allows you to build a discipline for this type of thinking, where before you fall back to your normal way of thinking. So if you build this muscle memory of how to use this concept, you become more open to this type of thinking, and it becomes a language almost. Kim, I see we're wearing our green hat today, something along those lines. Regularly apply the 6 Thinking Hat techniques in your meetings to drive decisions and comprehensive thinking that's required to be successful. Review project progress and then adapt and make changes as need be to ensure that the project stays on track. And also proactively identify and manage risk using the Black Hat to mitigate any problems that may occur as a result of your project implementation or your project team functioning as they should, in order to ensure that smoother technology implementation. How about that?
Sounds good. That's good.
Okay.
Okay. Judge, I have 2 questions that came in that I'm holding to the end, but one was, is it an individualized training, or is this a training that you would go through as a team?
It's more effective as a team, and I'll tell you why. It's a very experiential type training that you go through. So as a group, you would want your entire project team to go through this together. That way, you can help them understand where their deficiencies and challenges might be. You can determine where you can leverage capabilities, and you can also start to hold people accountable, because you wouldn't want to just use the hat terminology if the whole team didn't go through the whole the type of training. And you can hold people accountable to think the way that they need to think. That agenda is set. We're doing black, red, green, and then we're going to close with a blue. So if people are outside of that way of thinking, it's easy to redirect them without it being confrontational. Kim, we were doing Black Hat thinking right now. We're looking at the risk. You provide a great yellow hat comment, but we're doing Black Hat thinking. I've redirected your thinking now to where it's more in line with the group, and we're reaching a certain goal. Great question.
Okay, this question came in. Do you offer training on the 6 Thinking Hats for facilitators? It seems that a facilitator would need to be skilled on using the 6 hats effectively.
Yes, the facilitation is vitally important. The training that I offer will allow a person to be a facilitator, and we offer. You take that and you take it and you learn how to use the 6 Thinking Hats. The facilitator hat, or the facilitation of this, is a critical piece of the puzzle to make it work and make it work effectively. And the other opportunity that I've had with clients is I've gone in and co-facilitated or coached a group of individuals on how to use the 6 Thinking Hats for their particular meetings. So they learn the technique, and I'm kind of observing, and when I see things that may not align with the type of thinking that needs to occur or with the particular outcome that we're trying to accomplish, I kind of help redirect that. So there are some consultation of how to use this that's important as well, along with the training that's available for individuals to learn to use this process.
Thanks, Julian. And we are at time. So I want to thank Julian today for such a great discussion. And of course, a big thank you to everyone joining us for your time and attention. I do ask at the end of the session, you take a minute to fill out our survey. We always love to hear your feedback to make our webinars more enjoyable. We'll hope you join us again for another one of our upcoming webinars. Be sure to visit GP Strategy's website to view future sessions, and I wish everyone on the call a wonderful and productive rest of your day. Thank you all again.
Well, thanks for joining.
This webinar was brought to you by GP Strategies. Together, we help organizations transform through their people. You can access more webinars or download additional resources by visiting the GP Strategies Resource Library. The link is on your screen and in the description.